We have in all five of my slots the collaborative album between Sting and Shaggy.
You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod, the game where no one wins. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
And I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where, using a number generator and the Rate Your Music Punk charts, we choose one album and one EP at random to discuss. And this week, we are continuing our break-in format to do the best records of 2019. We did this last year, and we like making lists, so we were like, let's keep doing this.
I mean, we've been doing this every year for the last decade, so...
It is true.
Not quite as publicly.
Just on our private Tumblr pages, our secret public blog.
Our blogs, multiple, that no one read.
We've been putting out content that no one's wanted for more than 10 years now.
It's punk rock.
It's DIY. Whatever. And this year, so sprinkled throughout these two-part episodes, we'll also have opinions from our guests that we've had over the last year.
Yes, it's not just these two numbskulls giving their limited and frankly highly dubious opinions about music. And what's important
because
in music.
Who are we to...
We're just two dudes with strong opinions.
Yeah. So we decided to get some of our friends to tell us their opinions too. So it's not quite one-sided. So you'll be hearing from Anne Lepore, our good buddy Cory, Cory. We're also going to have Paul DiCiccio, and a few other guests. We also set up a voicemail line. So... we'll have a few different people call. We already got one from our friend Adam Yo, and it's so perfect. I can't wait for y'all to hear that. So, we got a couple different opinions coming in. It's not just us.
So, just, do the little 15, 30 seconds, skip forward until you hear someone else's voice. And then go to the end and listen to the clip.
Yeah.
And you're done. You listened to our show.
Yep.
Thank you. Just giving you some cheats.
Yeah.
You don't have to listen to 2 hours of this nonsense.
2?
4 hours of this nonsense.
Yeah, there we go. Normally, we like to take a look at the charts for the years of the albums we're talking about, randomly selected. So we're going to do that, but it's not random. It'll be the year 2019. And what was punk in 2019?
I thought you were just going, what? In response to these charts, which is almost what I would do.
Yeah, I think punk is broken. No one knows what to call punk.
Well, judging by the most straightforward punk records that I've listened to this year, getting consistently labeled alternative rock and power pop by users of Rate Your Music, I don't think anyone knows what punk is anymore.
Yeah.
It's splintered into so many tiny subgenres that no one knows what the pure form of it is anymore.
No. They know what the older versions are, and the bands that sound like the older versions. And even the subgenres, like, people still consider hardcore and screamo and all that other stuff a subgenre of punk, so that hasn't changed at all. It's just regular old punk, though. No one knows what to call it. Most of the people are just saying it's indie rock and DIY, which our good friend John Russell once tweeted that, what is DIY? It's not a genre. but it is. You know what a DIY band is, though, when they say that. So
you know it when you see it.
Yeah. It's like indie rock. It's the same discussion as people who were like in the 90s were like, what's indie rock? That's not a genre. Or college rock. It's just a thing that's been happening since the beginning of punk, honestly.
You can't really define it
No.
But when
But
you hear it, you say, "Oh, that's DIY."
Yeah. And I feel like, too, everyone has kind of moved away from traditional punk sounding stuff. So, like, you don't get you do get pop punk, but nobody hangs out with those people. So, it's just children still. I think kids are the only ones who are still calling stuff pop punk.
Yeah, it's like it's a 1 year phase. It's like you're 19 going into 20, and then that's it.
So, because we use the very faulty Rate Your Music, we're definitely missing things that I would consider punk, but the greater internet disagrees with.
I mean, at least one of our records that we're going to talk about doesn't show up.
Right.
Just because of that miscategorization.
Mm-hmm. I think, too, I don't know, what I use to find new music that I consider punk adjacent is like sites like the Gray Estate, the Alternative, No Earbuds. Like, there's a couple really great music sites out there right now that are really focusing on more independent, up-and-coming bands. And then there's like podcasts like Angry Girl Music, which focuses primarily on music of the indie rock persuasion. So, but lots of punk and indie and DIY stuff. So, emo, like, it's strange. No one really has an idea of what to call anything anymore, which is good, I guess, across the board. You know, people are getting less in scenes.
There's not a good... I want a good catch-all term that we can just call everything. Because I feel like indie rock is worn out.
Well, there's so many different levels of indie rock at this stage. Like, Of Montreal would be considered an indie rock band. But
is it just guitar music?
That may be it, because guitar music is not that popular anymore as far as more mainstream audiences.
I don't know. Like I said, new wave of American rock and roll. That's what I'm calling it.
Yeah. All right. So what are people listening to this year that they have decided to call punk in this day and age?
It's very limited.
So Rate Your Music has Weather Day come in as number 1. I listened to it. It's this weird sort of... I think it's probably a bedroom project initially. Like a lo-fi, indie, emo. It's a lot of different things. It's fine. I don't know why it's number 1. I feel like it's just another internet thing. I think this is the Brave Little Abacus of 2019.
Yeah.
A band that no one's heard. But number 2 is one that I actually very much enjoyed, and it is Otoboke Beaver. I hope they said that right. And their album Itekoma Hits. Not really a record. It's a compilation of like a couple new songs and then like a couple other EPs all like combined into one. It's the first time where most people have heard these songs, so I it can be excused for why people are not aware that it's not a record, but it's a really enjoyable record though. It's like a hardcore punk record mixed with noise almost. They're a Japanese 4-piece, high energy, very high energy. That band has been around apparently since 2009, so it's crazy. I enjoyed it a lot, but not really an album. So
yeah,
in the traditional sense.
Number 3 is Cloud Rat for some reason.
Yeah, all on
whatever.
Yeah,
it's grind. I don't care.
Number 4 is Tropical Fuckstorm with their album Brain Drops. They're an art punk band from Australia, made up of members of the band The Drones. They're like, I listened to a little bit of that record, and both of the most recent Tropical Fuckstorm records are like half of a great record, and then a half weirdo art punk record that I can't stand. So they're a little frustrating, but they're interesting, and I get why people like them, especially music review type people. Do we need to talk? We don't have to talk about every single thing that pops up on here. Maybe just some of the stuff we saw and listened to ourselves.
I mean, I'm not familiar with it, but there's that Soul Glow record.
Yeah,
that's
that record,
a big deal.
It's a really good record.
I know that's an important record, even if it's not something that I really checked out. And I slept on it, and that's my fault. I'm the one who's on the outside here. So, but I mean, even even my having slept on it, like I know it's a big deal.
Yeah, that band is a big deal. They've kind of blown up this year. This is their first. Well, no, it's not their first full length. They have a couple others before, but I think they went on a really big tour this year. They gained a lot of attention at the tail end of last year, I want to say, where one of the members was arrested while they were on tour. So then they had to cancel the rest of their tour and then like set up like a GoFundMe to bail out their band member, which I think all that got figured out. But this band, it's so funny to listen to something and go, oh, this is important, like the first time you hear it. So this record is important. I think it's going to be a classic within the next couple of years.
Oh yeah. They'll be remembered for decades. Honestly, calling that now.
Yeah.
They're definitely a significant, important band. What else is on this list?
So I want to call out this particular trend I noticed in 2019. Mathcore is way, way popular again. So
yeah,
I say this every time. The Callous Dow Boys. Oh, who's the other ones? Ithaca.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the other ones. There's like a whole list I have of. See You Space Cowboy.
Yep.
Just like,
I mean, there's a Norma Jean record in the top 40. I don't think it's really mathcore at this point, but
yeah, it's back.
Gift from God.
Yeah, they're a little weirder though.
Yeah,
Gift from God have a little bit more like spazzy screamo stuff in there, and like Wrist Meat Razor are like almost. They kind of started screamo, but they're swiftly moving into like metalcore.
Yeah. Metalcore in general is having a big moment.
Yeah, that Knocked Loose record is a huge deal. A Different Shade of Blue. Like Knocked Loose have their t-shirts in my local Hot Topic right now. So that shows you how big of a deal that band is. Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be, if it wasn't this year, I think next year is going to be inundated with frantic hardcore.
Which
Screamo,
is funny.
Mathcore, and probably like lots of super ignorant metalcore. Like we're going that way.
Yeah.
And it feels like we've been going that way for kind of too long at this point. It seems like it's been delayed, and maybe this was the peak year. I don't know.
Well, Screamo's having a moment this year too. The State Faults put out Clairvoyant. I found a couple more. Shinguard put out their album 2020. Nuva Lascura put out their self-titled. Sinza have an album called Even a Worm Will Turn. All of these are these very spazzy, like very fast-paced versions of Screamo, which is fun to hear because we were doing the more melodic, like higher production value thing for a while in this decade, and it's nice to have like this raw, fast version of Screamo again. So it's a nice trend. I'm enjoying this trend in heavier music this year in particular. Though it does seem like more melodic music has kind of taken a back seat as far as the punk side of things.
Yeah, there's what are the other significant trends?
There's what do you call Prince Daddy and the Hyena?
That's what I was trying to come up with a succinct term for, because Rate Your Music calls it pop punk, emo pop, indie rock. What I heard, I would say it's on that emo side of indie rock. I feel like I don't know. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, they're an interesting band because I listened to that album a little bit, and it's heavier than its reputation would imply. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Super Weeks, but with like more aggressive vocals. But there's like other bands like that get tied in, like Pictures of Vernon.
Know what I mean?
Vern. Just Friends. Heart Attack Man. Like there's this weird strain of like emo that's very, I don't know what you call it. It may just be more of an extension of the.
And it's funny. I feel like that stuff is more like you could generally call it indie rock, but I think people recognize it as coming from emo and punk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just an extension of the Philly emo scene. I think because isn't Prince Daddy a Philly band as well? No, they're a New York band. But
well, yeah, same difference.
Yeah, don't tell the people in New York that, or Philly. Apparently, Pictures of Vernon's an NC band. I did not know that.
Huh. Heart Attack Man is from Ohio.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as centralized. I think it's more of like that sound that started in Philly that it's just really branched out quite a bit. But
it's it's the natural extension of heavy Weezer.
Yeah. It's slower too. It's not as fast as, well, I would say Weezer's a very fast band, but it's a little bit more aggressive. I guess that's probably fair. Yeah, I don't know. Oso also put out a record this year called Basking in the Glow that got very, very highly reviewed. I didn't listen to it myself personally, but they're kind of looped into that scene.
Yeah, and their emo is going strong. I mean, that Origami Angel record has been talked about a lot. Came out in November. I mean, there's that American football record, which people apparently liked, as well as that La Dispute record, which, all right. There's also, we're still doing a lot of the, like, post-punk, goth rock, cold wave.
Yeah. It's not as strong this year as it was in the last two, but I think that could be because everybody's between albums right now, so we may see a bunch more come out in 2020.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You got Drab Majesty, you've got Black Marble.
That Black Marble record is really great. It's how is it classified? They list it as
cold wave.
Yeah, I could see that. Synth pop. That feels more accurate. There are some more early synthy elements to it. So think more Devo. It's slower than Devo though, but like that, the way those synthesizers sound than like later 80s synthesizers. I really enjoyed that record quite a bit. I don't think it should necessarily be a punk subgenre, but I guess cold wave is technically.
Yeah.
Why is cold wave included but new wave is not?
Right. A question for all time. Not to get all rate your music-y here, though. The site has its limitations.
Yes.
There's that Ceremony record. It's practically a new wave record.
Yeah. It's practically a Gary Newman record.
Yeah. I don't see any other real significant trends. So
there is one with more. It's heavy music again. So hardcore had a big year. Hardcore and like metalcore had a big year. So bands like Sanction put out their record Broken in Refraction. Judiciary put out Surface Noise. I'm trying to think of the other bands that had records. Magnitude put out a record this year.
Seizures.
Hardcore is doing very
after
well.
The Burial.
For itself.
Ringworm.
I mean, yeah.
Man,
the bands the bands I was naming are more closely related than these bands are.
Yeah, I'm just throwing everything that's heavy that I'm seeing on the charts. There's that Jerome's Dream record. Didn't they turn into a cop band?
Yeah.
Is that them?
So, hardcore did well, screamo did well, mathcore, metalcore did well, emo did well. Pop punk is not really anywhere to be seen. The deeper you go, though, you still see some pretty cool records. There's that Desperate Journalist record is really good. That kind of fits in with our synthy pop, like, post-punk thing going on. Business of Dreams put out, like, a straight-up new wave record. Like,
I love that record. I listened to it a bunch. Do you want to hit our runners up?
We'll do that in the second part.
If we're talking about that one, that's a runner up for me.
Yeah. We'll on our part 2, we'll do our runners up. Yeah. Interesting year that punk did not have a specific lane that they were in, I guess, which is fine. Broadening your horizons and not limiting what you listen to and everything. But before we get into our list, we're gonna throw it over to Anne Lepore's favorite records of the year. Anne was on our show twice this year. She was supposed to be on for a third time and unfortunately wasn't able to. And we're definitely going to be having her back on in 2020. Anne's great. She has so many good stories about being in like New York in the 80s and 90s and the music scene there. Her list is pretty cool. It's real heavy on saxophone, but so she runs the Machine Shop, which is an online web store that focuses on. She releases a lot of Kepi Ghoulie. She's Kepi Ghoulie's primary online web store as far as merchandise is concerned. But she also, it kind of works like a distro. She's got art in there, merch. So check out the Machine Shop if you like pop punk, upbeat pop punk 90s style. But yeah, we'll throw it over to Anne.
Here we are, the end of the year. Woo!
Yep, end of 2019, end of the decade. What were you listening to this year? I would jump right into it.
Right. Well, of course, I listened to tons of things, and I do want to have a quick disclaimer. I listened to Kepi and the copyrights, but I'm not going to talk about it because I have such a bias for Kepi and love Kepi so much that I want everyone to know that that's not what I'm going to talk about today. But secretly, everyone should go listen to that also. Anyway, I would like to talk about some of the favorite things. There's so much, and I'm sorry I'm going to miss talking about some things, but I picked a couple of things that I really wanted to talk about. The first one is Amyl and the Sniffers. Band from Australia.
What's the name of that record? I should have that pulled up in front of me, but I don't.
It's
okay.
A subtitled album.
Yeah, tell us what you liked about it.
This one's actually I think the hardest one to talk about because I don't even know how to explain why I love it. Because it's so wacky in some ways, but so straightforward in other ways. I guess I saw them this year for the first time, and kind of pretty close to the time when I got the album. I got the album, and then I think I saw them about 2 or 3 weeks later. So that's all, put together in their amazing performance. They're so great. They're kind of they're punk, and they're rock and roll, and they're 70s, and they're sort of got a Slade feel to me. I don't know if anyone else ever says that but they're very 70s, and they've got a bit of a glammy feel when you listen to it, but I feel I don't know. They all, the guys, and even I guess Amy, the singer, they have mullets. It's a thing now in Australia for every band to have a mullet. And I mean, it works for them. I mean, normally I'm kind of disgusted by that, but it's their whole image is working for them. I think they're just exciting and wild and crazy.
Yeah, they really remind me of that. Who was it we were talking about? We were on. We had Steve and Adrienne on from the Singles Going Steady podcast, and Steve recommended this record as well. And he said it really reminded. We were talking about Radio Birdman. That's what it was. And he said that Amyl and the Sniffers really reminded him of that 70s Australian punk sound that was breakout of punk in 76, 77. So I listened to this record myself, and it makes my 100 albums of the year list as well. But it's a really fun record. It's fun, and seeing them live, like I said, really they're they're just wild, and it's maybe a little bit more tough. Not tough, that's the wrong word. It's a little bit more pub rock than I think I would normally stray into, but I think because there's a woman singing, it gives it a different kind of feel. I think if it was a guy singing, I'm not sure that I would
have it as like a top album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it just sets it up into a different arena because of that.
I feel like if it was a guy doing this kind of stuff, it would have to be a little bit more. I don't know. Like he would really have to do something different to get my attention.
Yeah,
like,
or it would have to be more tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it would have to be like kind of a wink at the audience, like because I don't think all guys could pull this
right.
image off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean right now. But and a band that I saw this year their album didn't come out this year, but I did want to mention with these guys is Surfport. If you haven't seen Surfport, they're definitely one of my top live shows of the year, and I feel like these two bands are like twins. Surfboard is the American version of this, maybe more punk, less pub, more punk. But they definitely go hand in hand. There's definitely like a similar style in everything that they do, both in with the way the singers are and the way they are on stage. So definitely check out Surfboard to everybody for live shows. And I think they're recording, and they'll probably have something new out next year.
Yeah. Did you? Where did you see Amyl and the Sniffers? Because I know they're from Australia.
They toured. They've been actually to Philadelphia a few times in the last probably year or two. I missed them. Yeah, I missed them a couple times, and then this year they played a small venue in Philly called Boot and Saddle, and it was packed. It was sold out. It was great. And I also saw another band in that same venue that was another top show of the year. A band called Shame.
Oh, I really, really like Shame.
Yeah, and this was a small venue, and it sold out really fast, and it was great. And you know, both like really similar kind of feeling of both the shows. That the singer like comes out into the audience and goes all crazy and is on top of everyone, and the whole crowd was just like screaming at the top of their lungs the whole time with them, and it was just like really interactive. Great audience, great bands, really cool.
Awesome. All right, what else you got for us?
So also, this kind of, I guess, is sort of the year of the saxophone for me. Yeah, because a bunch of the things I talked about, I mentioned to you, have saxophone. So French Vanilla is a band that I've seen before and I love, and they had a new album called How Am I Not Myself? They're so great.
I wanted to thank you for bringing them to my attention because I hadn't heard this album. I think I'd seen the album cover online, but I hadn't listened to it myself. And so like I gave it a listen to see what it sounded like. And this record is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Really great. I saw them, and also another band that I'm going to talk about today, and also connected to the other bands I'm going to talk about. I saw them about 2 years ago in Philly at a really great show. I knew nothing about them. I didn't have anything. I hadn't heard them yet, and they completely blew me away. So fun, and like I said, this is my year of saxophone. Like I love saxophone and punk. We might have talked about this in a previous podcast. And this is their second album, and they're so great live. Sally Spitz, the singer, is, a lot of these bands have like great front people. That really helps a lot with like just pushing it over the edge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the saxophone on this record. That is one thing I noticed when you sent your like list of what you're going to talk about today. I was like, oh, there's a lot of saxophone on all these records, and we've said on here before that we're not like the biggest fan of the saxophone when it's used poorly. I guess more in like an art punk setting, But like this French Vanilla record, like it's used perfectly. Like this is exactly how I love to hear the sax played in punk.
Yeah, it's so good. And the sax player, I was like standing right in front of him during the set when I saw them, and he was. I really enjoyed watching him. The whole band had a really nice energy on stage, and like they just exuded like really like fun and nice, like not like fun and aloof, but like actually fun, like really enjoying being on stage. And the album is, I think this album is even better than their first album. It just like went up a bunch of notches. There's definitely probably are gonna think about maybe a teeny bit of a Bush Tetras feel with some of the songs, maybe a little bit of a James Chance and the Contortions, of course, because of the saxophone feel on some of the songs. But I think they're really unique. Highly recommend this album.
Yeah, this one makes my top 100 too. I really, really enjoyed this record, and I'm glad you brought it to my attention.
Yay! Everyone should go out and see them and check it out. There's a couple other things, but two I'm going to talk about sort of together. Sacred Paws. The album is called Run Around the Sun. Trash Kit. The album is called Horizon. So both of these bands are kind of anchored by the same person. Her name is Rachel Aggs, and she is also in a band called Shopping. And I discovered French Vanilla and Control Top, who I'm still going to talk about, because they were on a bill with Shopping. I went to see Shopping like about 2 years ago, and it was Control Top, French Vanilla, Shopping. Wow! And my head like exploded afterwards. It was definitely like one of the best shows of my entire life. All three bands were phenomenal. Control Top, I'll talk about. They're from Philly. They were new, early. Maybe it might have been one of their like first like 5 or 6 shows that one. And so Shopping are this great band from the UK, like British, Scottish mix trio. And Rachel Aggs is, like I said, like the anchor, and she's in Trash Kit and she's in Sacred Paws, and you can hear her, that sound that you're hearing all the time in Trash Kit and Sacred Paws, that's her, and you're going to hear that in Shopping. It's that jumpy, I don't even know how do you explain what it is that she's doing.
Yeah, there's like a lot of guitar tapping, so there's this sort of math rock vibe to it, but it's not like trying to play these weird mathy polyrhythms or anything like that. Like the songwriting still feels kind of straight ahead, just with lots of cool guitar work.
Yeah. So for a Trash Kit, I would say, that's like definitely math rock influenced. I think Rachel has talked about that in interviews. But it's very post punk. It's no wave for sure. Again, there's a thread I'm feeling of like that contortions, James Chan's, that time period, DNA in New York of no wave that I feel in everything that Rachel does. But then there's like this breeziness, like this like happy, jumpy sound. So it's this weird mix of like cold and warm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think and also like a little bit cute. I think people might feel Sacred Paws is a little bit more cute. And a little Sacred Paws is softer, maybe a little more like some people might say like twee, but not exactly. And I like to talk about them both together because to me they sort of are like bookends, and they're sort of like a good pair of things to listen to like together. And I would recommend anybody going to see anything that Rachel is in, any band. She's so fun to watch on stage. She always performs barefoot, and she's really fun. She's just really neat, and I think she's so talented, and I respect everything she does. And I've seen Sacred Paws, I've seen Shopping. I have not yet seen Trash Kit. Hopefully they'll come around sometime.
Let's talk about Control Top.
Yes, let's talk about Control Top. Control Top, I mean, if I have to pick a number one, or like at least in like a top three, it's definitely Control Top Covert Contract. I'm so thrilled for this band, and so excited that they are part of like Philly hometown scene, and that they've been getting a lot of great reviews, and this record has been on a lot of like top lists for the year. And I think it's so wonderful, and sometimes it reminds me of, there's like a little bit of like the Sleds, a teeny bit, maybe a little bit of Destroy All Monsters. Are you familiar with them?
I know the name.
Destroy All Monsters. Also, the one other thing I want to talk about today reminds me a lot of Destroy All Monsters. They were from Detroit and like mid 70s to mid 80s, and some of the Stooges were in Destroy All Monsters, but the lead was Niagara, the singer, and she kind of like makes everything, happen with her voice and her amazing style. But yeah, this is all saxophony and art rocky and no wavy, and I guess that's my whole year was this.
Yeah, Covert Contracts by Control Top. It is either my number one and number two album of the year. I found it kind of early on. I guess probably like maybe a week or two before the record came out. I heard one of the first songs on the record, and I was like, oh, I cannot wait to hear what this is going to sound like. And then when the album came out, I was like blown away, and it like instantly like shot to the top of my like list. So I'm very happy you picked this one, because if you hadn't picked it, I would pick it for the main show, for like the full list there. I love this record so much. It's a really cool combination of like post-punk. There's a little bit of hardcore in there, maybe definitely more in like the delivery and like the attitude. But then there's like some electronic elements to it, almost.
Definitely,
I'm not.
for sure. I think they would not be uncomfortable with having like a dance punk thrown in there as one of the descriptions. Electronic-y dance punk, no wave, punk, like just straight up punk. The drumming is phenomenal. That's where I think the hardcore piece comes in. And the record label is Get Better Records. I want to promote them because that's their label. They run this label, Get Better Records, this band, and they do such great things. They put out great records, and they're from Philly again, and it's just great to see this band and this record label getting such notoriety, and people are paying attention to like good stuff.
Yeah, Get Better is one of the coolest labels operating today. They put out a bunch of really good stuff this year, like that Potty Mouth album and that Dump Him album. Like they put some really good stuff out. So, and plus they're a really awesome follow online. So like if you like a really cool Twitter, the Get Better Twitter is great to follow as well.
Yeah, and they're just like right on. I'm proud to be like, somewhat like even associated with anything that they're associated with, just by even talking about how great they are.
Yeah, they had a big hit last year with the Hers Collective.
Yeah, the Hers Collective. They have Empath, and I think they put out some stuff by Sheer Mag also. Yeah.
It looks like they've got a Warriors album as well. I don't know if that's a split release or with another label.
Yeah, and Choked Up, another band I really like. So cool. And I think they just are putting out that recent single by Alice Bag.
Yeah, there's something listed here. It's like a Christmas?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. No, it's got Santa on the album cover.
No Gifts for Nazi.
Yeah.
Yay, Alice Bag is awesome. So yes, every single person, if you love punk in any way, you should get this album. Like, if I have to say just one album, this is the one that everybody needs to get.
I back that completely. Yeah.
So, and I did want to talk a teeny bit about one little other thing, which is the one that I mentioned to you, this band called Oof, which is not the band that played at Fest this year. Another band has named themselves Oof, and they're from New York, and they're probably never going to tour, and they're just going to ever play in New York. And so if you ever want to see them, you'll have to go to New York to see them. But they have a cassette-only release from a cassette-only label, and their cassette is called Vanity Plate, and that reminds me very, very much of Destroy All Monsters. There is saxophone in this band, and there is a woman singing, and it just goes, and it's all, again, no wave, post-punk awesomeness.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, you told me this band's name was called Oof, and I was like, hey, that band that played Fest? And you're like, no, I don't think so.
I highly doubted that. There's a large scene of bands playing in New York related to this label called Fuzzy Warbles Cassettes, who are just people who live in New York and have jobs and families and lives, but are musicians and punk rockers who want to keep making music. So they're doing it, they're not able to tour generally, but they're just playing whenever they can, and they got a great scene going on, and all the people in it are really cool, and the people who make that label are cool. And I'm guessing you maybe recognize that they're cover is, got a little similarity to that band called Off, and that the art maybe looks a little bit like that. So there's a little.
Yeah, there's definitely a slight Raymond Pettibone style to the artwork, and it's a very cool cover. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. So that's one you never had heard about or anything.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks a lot for doing the show, and we'll put some clips in here for audience to hear all these bands. But thank you for doing the show this year. You've done it, twice this year?
Yeah. Sorry I had to bomb out that one time, but I'll be back.
Oh, yeah, you'll definitely be back.
Yeah. So I love the show, and I love you guys, and I really enjoy being on. It's really, really fun.
And that's where I'll splice it in. Seamless transition. All right, let's get into our list. So, who wants to go first? I think I'll go first.
All right, do it.
Okay, so we're doing 10 albums. We'll do 5 on this one and 5 on next week's episode. So, starting off at number 10, the numbers are really kind of arbitrary, but we're just giving you numbers just to follow along. I have Necking and their album Cut Your Teeth. So I had a very, 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 very hard time picking what album I was going to make number 5. I have changed it 5 times this week. I wanted to, I don't know, this one I switched out a couple times last week, and then I switched out another one on this list because the original album I was going to have on here didn't quite really fit in with the punk genre. I landed on this one to be sort of representative of an overall sound that I was really listening to. So Necking are from Vancouver, British Columbia. This record was released on Mint Records, who has put out some stuff by Woolworm and Peach Kelly Pop. The personnel on this record is Hannah Karen on vocals, Melissa Kupers on drums, Nada Hayek on guitar, and Sonia R on bass. And the record was recorded and mixed by Jesse Gander, who also produced a couple albums by Japan Droids. So it kind of explains why this album sounds as slick as it does. This is their first full-length album. They had one self-released EP prior to this. And they play a brand of post-punk with some like angular noise rock elements. It kind of made me think of like Slater-Kinney kind of crossed with the Breeders. And then there's even a song on here that straight up sounds like a Jawbox song, like the riffs in the verse. So it's kind of hard to narrow down exactly what it is, but one of the standouts of the record is the bass work on here. So there's a lot of like these really bouncy, rubbery riffs that drive a majority of the songs, which that gives me some noise rock vibes. Vocally, it's a lot of fun. You can actually make out a lot of what the lyrics are, which is a huge bonus when enjoying music. So like there's some fun stuff in here about power imbalances in the work environment, real fun stuff.
Yeah, real fun.
Gentrification of the art scene, having a useless degree.
Hey, so that's relatable.
Yeah, this record is millennial as fuck. I related very hard to some of this stuff on here.
This weird song about avocado toast on there. And just
the opening track on the album is called Big Mouth, and it was also their lead single, and which they even made a music video for, which featured people wearing fish masks. It's very lo-fi video, but it's pretty fun. Yeah, there's even a song on here called Habbo Hotel.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Which is like referencing like the songwriter's experience for like with online creeps, basically, because there's a line in the song about ASL, age, sex, location, a thing that used to get.
Well, Habbo Hotel, for those who don't know, it's notorious for being. It's basically like a kids chat room, like Neopets type thing. And it was very quickly infiltrated by perverts.
Yeah.
Sex criminals. And so it was... Does it still exist?
I don't know. I know it was raided at one point. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it even still exists anymore. It does
lasted for longer than it should have been able to.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just funny to see that. I had to actually pause for a minute to be like, why does that sound so familiar?
Yeah.
Because it's been so long since I've even like thought about anything like that. So being on 4chan in the early part of the late part of the 2000s,
Yeah.
you were experiencing some real awful shit. So
Yeah.
and Habbo Hotel was kind of looped in.
It's a very dark corner of the internet from a decade ago,
Yeah.
if not more at this point.
This record's 22 minutes long, super easy to get through, which I found is a lot of my records this year are less than 30 minutes. So I have no patience anymore.
You're the minimal effort music listener.
Oh yeah, you give me a 45 plus minute album, ugh, I'm not making it through that one. Yeah, I picked this record because I was looking at my notes, because I keep a running list of everything I listen to throughout the year, and this was one that I had rated really highly early on in the year, and I went back to it and was like, man, this is a fun record. But in a way, it's also more of a representative of kind of a lot of bands that I was listening to this year. So, ask me next week, that album's probably going to be a different one, but as of right now, that's my number 5, or number 10. So unless you have any thoughts on it, we can move on to your number.
Sure. Let's move on.
Okay.
My number 5, I guess number 9 on our list, is Adult Magic by Adult Magic.
Meant to stay the same. I know we all keep moving along. Trace your steps, a year or two, a month, a day, a week from June. It's all gone. Fall back into your habits again. And that night, by the park side, I thought that I would see you again.
Adult Magic is Jesse Litwa on guitar and vocals, Mike Bruno, Mikey Dumps, as you may know him, bass and vocals, and Chris Arena on drums and vocals. Everybody sings in this band.
Yeah.
They brought in guest vocals even still. We get some guest vocals from Mimi, from a bunch of bands.
Nona, Year of Glad, 8 was the most recent thing she was in.
I love her voice, and I was really stoked to hear her on a couple songs on this record.
Yeah.
And she pairs really well with everyone's voice in this band.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I think this is, we talked about Crowbait in our retrospective of the decade, and this, that's a record that I think of often, and a band that I think of often, that I find is really indicative of my tastes in punk rock currently, and for the last 5 or 6 years. It leans on that, I guess it's kind of in that Replacements sounding sort of alt-rocky punk, mid-tempo, a little twangy, a little alt-country influence too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally my wheelhouse. Like, I knew I was going to love this record before it came out.
Yeah.
So I was stoked to hear it the first time. Comparing it to some of the other records that I've got on my list, it didn't quite stick for me as much as I thought it would. But then revisiting it some for this list, I was really stoked again. So I think it's going to get a little bit more play from me going forward.
And for those who don't know, it's kind of a super group made up of members of Iron Chic, Sister Kisser, Broadcaster. Mike Bruno's been in like a ton of bands that released one EP and nothing else. So I was actually quite surprised that this full length actually came out, because he has a habit of just like doing a 4-song EP and then never releasing another thing with it. But
yeah, I don't know. Like, this is this is my ideal punk sound.
Mm-hmm.
You've got some gruff vocals, some harmonies, great riffs, catchy little guitar parts. It's kind of a sound that'll come up when we talk about, actually, I think every record on my list. You called it what? Tom Petty core?
Yeah, Petty. Yeah, that's what I called it last year.
It's got that Heartland punk feel.
Yeah,
Big choruses,
huge choruses,
and this record's got some real bummer lyrics. So be careful, depending on what mood you're in, driving while listening to this record. Because I was choking up a little bit on my way home from work yesterday, listening to some of these songs. I don't know, it's got kind of a drunk punk thing too.
It does. I mean,
and I guess that's like a hot water music holdover, and
yeah, I mean the Midwestern punk scene did that a lot. Which makes sense, because Mike was in Jonesin, which is essentially just a Midwest pop punk band, like an Off With Their Heads type gruff punk band. So yeah, it makes sense. And then Iron Chic are their own version of that, more hyper melodic version. But yeah, it came out on Dead Broke Records, which is also Mike's record label. Who I don't love everything they put out, but when they put stuff out that I really like it. Like, there's something every single year that they've put out that I am all in on, and usually makes my top 10. And this record makes mine as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I really hope that we get more of Adult Magic.
Yeah, that'd be nice. They played Fest, 2 years in a row, which was surprising.
And Chris was not in Crowbait. I wanted to say he was. Chris Arena was.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it was Chris. Not Jesse. I was thinking Jesse was, but
no, Jesse's in Iron Chic now.
Yeah, Jesse was from Broadcaster, and
yeah,
that's a really good combination, though.
Yeah,
Jesse and Mike are a great. They kind of fit into slightly different lanes vocally, and they have a nice range between their two voices, and it works really well.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that this is 2/3 of Crowbait, because Chris and Mike were both in Crowbait, and when I listened to it, I was like, hey, it's an extension of the Crowbait sound, which yeah, I also too include that record as one of my favorite records of the decade. And it's so funny to be like, this obscure release is one of your favorites, but it is. I'm not sure what happened with that band, if the other guy is maybe the reason why they haven't released any other records, but
yeah, this is a so similar that I would almost say it's the same band. I mean, it's a perfect consolation for No More Crowbait records.
Mm-hmm.
I just want, as long as Mike keeps putting out a record that sounds like this every year or two, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the band's name is, who else is in it. I can listen to this stuff endlessly.
Well, yeah. That means you can go listen to some Wax Phantom and a little bit of Dobler. And Joneson has a little bit of it. It's the little poppier version, but a lot of his bands kind of have a similar through line, which is funny because he's the bass player in all those bands. But I don't know if he was writing the songs on guitar and just plays bass in the bands, but
I don't know. I think that's all I've got on Adult Magic, unless you have anything to add.
No, we can move on. Oh, sorry. Yawning into the microphone. Real great. Yeah, we can move on. All right. My number 8 on the list is Spoken in Tongues, The Nail That Sticks Up Will Be Hammered Down. So, Spoken in Tongues is essentially a solo project by Billy Power of the band Blenderhead. Billy wrote and sings the whole album as well as plays all the guitar and bass. He enlisted the help of his friend Chris Whibley from the band Everdown to play drums. And unless you grew up listening to Tooth and Nail records from the 90s and early 2000s, none of those names are going to mean a whole lot to you. But Blenderhead means a lot to me, and I want to... and you as well, I would imagine.
Yeah.
We ran a blog called Figureheads of Pop, which was a reference to the Blenderhead album Figureheads on the Forefront of Pop Culture. It may be in my all-time top 10 album list. And even Billy also has a podcast called Urban Achiever, where he primarily just interviews his friends. It was kind of one of the inspirations of me wanting to start a podcast. So... he's a person I have an immense respect for, and I appreciate his music. And this was a very long gestating project. I heard some rough instrumental demos a couple years ago. He played them on his show, and so I'd always been waiting for him to release a new record of some sort. Unfortunately, the thing that kind of got this record rolling was one of the worst years in Billy's life. He wound up getting a divorce, and at the end of those proceedings, his father passed away. So, in his own words, this record is about death, and it feels like it. This is an incredibly emotional album, especially if you've been following along with his life in the last 2 years. I usually get a little misty-eyed or tear up at least once per listen on this record, specifically on songs like Bluff and All Hands on Deck. And then he even did...
Bluff is... that's the one.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. They think I'm funny.
Yep, they think I'm funny. Can't they tell that I'm mourning? Yeah, that's a rough track, but it's also one of the best songs on the album. It's incredibly melodic. Sonically, he was inspired heavily by Husker Du and Sam I Am, and you can hear that a lot because Blenderhead was more Jawbox, Discord Records, 90s Discord Records sound influenced, and so Spoken in Tongues is much more melodic. It's I listened to... he previewed every song on this album on his podcast, and I listened to that, and just listening to him tell the story. It's an amazing companion piece to the record. It's extremely emotional and very raw in places, but I put this record on here, one, because I'm a massive fan of his, but two, it impacted me more emotionally than any other album I listened to in 2019. It's a rough listen as far as if you're paying attention to what the songs are about, but it's a good record on overall. There's some like instant classics on here, like the song Cages and the song Fractures and I Know What You Did Last Summer. There's just like a bunch of really great songs on here that, yeah, it really, I think about this record a lot. Not only when I'm just like thinking about what came out this year, but just, yeah, I feel a lot when I listen to this record. Did you have a chance to listen to it much?
Yeah, not a ton. I did listen to it once all the way through prepping for this. And even that one listen, like, I was singing along, the second time through the chorus on several of these songs.
Yeah.
Really, really catchy.
Yeah.
Billy really has a great sense of melody. He just writes such catchy, memorable stuff. And it's, my brain is hardwired to like it, I guess. Figureheads on the Forefront of Pop Culture that was a very formative record for me. I was probably like 16, 17 when I listened to it first, and I listened to it a ton. Really, really, really love his voice. I mean, it's just great to hear Billy again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's got and you know what I was thinking while I was listening to this record? He really reminds me, or maybe, well, really, Rob from our good buddy Rob from Muscle and Bone and Fairground Avenue. Reminds me a lot of Billy, more so than maybe the obvious comparisons of like Matt Pryor or what's his name saves the day, but
Chris Conley,
yeah. I find more similarities in his voice to Billy's voice. It really struck me on this record. Kind of a nasally voice, kind of a high voice. But yeah, I really enjoy this record, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not listening to it as soon as it came out. I will definitely be revisiting this one.
Yeah. So keep your fingers.
Musically, it's not as complex as Blenderhead was. I don't think it loses anything for that.
No.
And hopefully we'll get some more music. Out of Billy.
Yeah, they said this is a first in a trilogy of records. So wow. I'm really.
Do they have it written already?
I don't know. I hope so. That'd be really cool if they did. I was looking at their stories today on Instagram, and they were going to pick up the records like from the plant, I believe. Today, they had some issues getting them pressed, so it delayed a little bit, the physical media, but I should be getting my copy probably within the next month or so whenever they start shipping out, so I'm excited. And I really do hope this means we're going to get more. I mean, I would imagine if you pressed a record of it, you're planning on doing more than just... I do know that he plans on moving to Nashville after he finishes college this year. I think this year. And then he's going to search for a band, like a full band, and do some shows. So he's legit wanting to do it for real. So I'm very happy and very excited to have Billy back in the music making game. But that's it for me, unless you want to add anything.
Nope.
All right, let's move on to number 7.
So number 7, the number ratings are so arbitrary. Is Dark Blue, and their album Victory is rated. heard us talk about them previously in our retrospective. John Sharkey III, the Golden Pipes of Delco, from Clock Cleaner, Puerto Rico Flowers. You probably know who he is already.
Yeah.
Andrew Nelson on bass. Andrew was in the band. Andrew was in
Andrew Nelson he is in Ceremony. He was also in Paint It Black and Affirmative Action Jackson and Open City and
you
I don't
probably
know
know Andrew Nelson too.
Yeah.
Michael Sneeringer on drums. B. David Walsh on guitars. There's a trumpet from Kurt Vile on this record, and Sarah Sheminik plays the keys. It's released on 12XU Records. Dark Blue is from Philadelphia. It is still the capital of indie rock.
Don't tell Seattle.
This is their Going For It record.
They really are going for it on this record.
John sings, like, straight up sings on this record.
He still sounds
he does
like
some whoa, whoa, like doo-woppy. He really goes for it.
I mean, he still does sound like a skinhead robot in a lot of songs. You know,
like reanimated Ian Curtis, like, like really singing.
Yeah.
I was really surprised though as how polished this record sounds in everything. Like the guitars and the general production of this record is pretty slick. Mm-hmm. Perfect timing for them to go on hiatus.
Yeah. I think the hiatus was John going back to Australia because I believe he balances time between the U.S. and Australia. Plus Ceremony, just put out their new record too.
Right.
So they're on like a massive push for that record. So and Dark Blue isn't like it's a band, but it's not like a full-time touring band, So it's just something they do for fun, and I guess they do it for a living too. But it's between Ceremony tours and records.
Yeah, Mrs. John, that's the one where he does the woes at the very end. Waterford Crystals is an instant hit. I mean, it's first track. It's one of those side A, track one.
Yeah. Side one, track one.
When You Leave Me in the Summer, that one was really, really catchy. I would call this a post-punk record, but it's a little further along in that sound. It's not like directly reproducing Wire, and it's not like Interpol, post-punk revival or anything like that. John is a great songwriter. So much of his music is super, super memorable. I mean, there's Clock Cleaner records that I haven't listened to in a very long time, and I could sing you those songs.
Yeah. And Clock Cleaner is like one of the most abrasive projects he was involved in. And there's still memorable hooks on those records.
There's some Brit pop. There's some... it's like a pop post-punk record, really. Which, I don't know. I guess you could argue that post-punk is poppy. The Buzzcocks were super poppy, and you would call them a post-punk band. So, I think this is more in line with the Buzzcocks than it is with Joy Division.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the production and like the instrumentation. Everything's way more involved than. Not to say the Joy Division isn't involved, but more lush than a Joy Division record, I guess. Because Joy Division is very sparse. But even some earlier Dark Blue stuff is probably more sparse than this. I think there's a lot going on here that I think the addition of another guitarist... Well, I guess... No. Was B. David Walsh always in the band? No, he wasn't.
No,
John
Pure Reality has a lot more of John's typical, like, splattery, super echoey guitars. That's not quite as prominent on this record.
Because he doesn't play guitar on this record.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, it looks like he doesn't.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Maybe that's why it feels so much bigger than the previous records. I didn't realize that he wasn't playing guitar on this record until I was just looking at the liner notes here.
This came out in February, and I revisited it every month, practically. I mean, not in full, but definitely, a track here or there. It's a record that could have gotten very quickly overlooked, but it clicked immediately for me. We talked about how Start of the World, their previous record, didn't hook me, but this one really did.
I mean, they even have a series of singles that I absolutely adore as well. And there's a compilation called Red, White, and Dark Blue that like collects all those songs together, and it's essentially a fourth album, just if you listen to it that way. But they even had a little 2-song single last year, Fight to Love and For You.
Yeah. They've
consistently put out music, more consistently than I ever expected.
Yeah, right. And Fury Reality came out and you thought like, well, it'll be that and a couple singles and that'll be it.
Yeah.
Because it was, a ceremony side project.
Yeah.
But no, they've been plugging away and putting out great music for several years now.
6 years now.
Yeah.
Formed in 2013. So the first single came out in 2014. Well, is that it?
I think that's all I've got. So.
All right. So moving on to number 6. And this will be the last one for this episode. Number 6 is Pup and their album Morbid Stuff. This is the populist choice.
This was the choice that you settled on this week.
Yes. It was a replacement for an album that I debated including because I was like, is this really a punk record? And then on my most recent listen through, I didn't. We'll talk about it on our runner-up episode, our runners-up on the next episode. It didn't quite make it as punk enough. It's not true punks, so I didn't want to include it. And I was like going over and over. I was like, what is it? Is this punk? Is this punk? Is this punk? And then I was like, well, what record did I like the most this year? One of the records I liked the most this year that you could unquestionably call a punk record. And this record immediately jumped to my mind. Pup are from Toronto, Ontario. This is their third full-length album and their first on Rise Records. I'm assuming since Side One Dummy basically dissolved, this was the next logical choice on labels for them. Pup is Stephen Babcock on guitar and vocals, Nestor Chumak on bass, Zach Mikula on drums, and Steven Sladowski on guitars. The record was produced by David Schiffman, who produced albums from Anti-Flag, The Bronx, and Bayside, so it's a pretty big, slick record. And so I decided to throw this one on the list, one, because Pup are a very, very good band. This is a very, very good record.
We need people to listen to this show. This is a great record.
It is a great record. It's probably the most fun record on our list. Like, looking at what we have coming up on our list.
Yeah, we got a bunch of bummers.
This is the most energetic, upbeat, fun record to listen to. Pup are a band that came out of nowhere with their first album. Like, literally, like, here's a full length. No one knew who they were before that. Generated buzz instantaneously. We were talking about how we couldn't remember when it had come out. It actually was released in Canada in 2013 and in the United States in 2014. So that we didn't discover it until 2014. But that's if you listen to our best of the decades. We were trying to figure out what year the first record came out. Yeah, so they blew up like instantaneously. Like And then they followed it up with The Dream Is Over, which their best record? I think it's the most distilled version of what Pup is.
Yeah, I mean, with The Dream Is Over, I remember them specifically saying, like, they looked back at their first record and they pretty much just focused on the things that they felt like they did the best.
Yeah. So
on that record, and just tried to only do that.
The thing they do the best, and they do on this record, is have these massive hooks and these massive choruses that are tailor-made for singing along with 50 to 200 people in a club with all of your arms outstretched, pumping your fist along with. Like, these are anthemic choruses that they could do an entire set list that consisted of just the first 4 tracks on all 3 of their albums, and it would be the best thing in the world. Because Pup have this crazy ability to knock you out with a 1-2 punch on every single record. So the first record it goes from Guilt Trip to Reservoir, and then the second record does If This Tour Doesn't Kill You, I Will to DVP, and then this one does Morbid Stuff to Kids. And they seem to take the high fidelity rules to making a mixtape to heart, because they even always slow it down at the same point on all 3 records.
Right, you gotta cool it off.
So you could call it formulaic, sure, but it's a tried and true method of sequencing an album in a way that gets you the maximum results. It may cause your back half to suffer as far as like repeat listenings, but you're going to want to listen to those first 3 to 5 tracks, the first 3 to 5 tracks like on repeat almost.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the back half of this record, there's Bloody Mary, Kate and Ashley.
I think this
sibling rivalry, there's
so
stuff
I would say The Dream Is Over is their best record, but I could be talked into believing that this is their best record.
I think time will tell.
Right, we'll need a little more time. I will say, looking at Rate Your Music, which we're not a Rate Your Music podcast, but they are a nice aggregate for what we need. This record has double the ratings of The Dream Is Over and triple the ratings of the self-titled. Morbid Stuff has 3,566 ratings. The Dream Is Over has 1,950. So Rise Records is doing... I don't know if it's Rise is helping them out, or if this is just an just a gradual growth of their audience over time. I feel like if it was... This record got a lot of music press this year. When it first came out, I was hesitant. My initial reaction was, it's not as good as the last one. And my initial reaction was that each album is weaker than the one before. And I went back and re-listened to the first record again, and I could see a lot of things there that they stopped doing that were for the better. And like, as of right now, I say The Dream Is Over is the best, but yeah, time, like you said, time will tell on this one. People are way into this record. It's number 8 on the album chart for punk.
Yeah.
Everybody likes Pup. I don't know anybody who doesn't really like them. So,
well, there's a couple 2-star reviews from people on Rate Your Music, but there's a funny thing about Pup. You mentioned how like their song sequencing might come across as formulaic, and I see a lot of accusations as far as the naysayers about them being formulaic pop punk and how it sounds like everything you've heard before, but this doesn't sound like anything else. This doesn't sound like Joyce Manor. This doesn't sound like the Front Bottoms. It doesn't sound like Jeff Rosenstock. Like, they sound like Pup.
Yeah.
And
I've seen people say that, where they're like, it just sounds like the same old other punk. And it's like, no, they don't really. They have maybe the energy of some stuff that you may recognize, but musically on their own, they are their own thing.
Yeah, and they're heavier than calling them pop punk implies, and really more frantic. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have, and I've always drawn comparisons to Bear vs. Shark.
That's not even that accurate either, though.
And no, it's not. Like, but I feel like it fits in a way that they they'll try something
Mm-hmm.
with every song. Like, they'll kind of try a weird idea. I mean, there's dissonant stuff. I mean, Stefan's vocals they sound like the Beastie Boys. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. There's chromaticism in the guitar parts, and, you know, like, they never do anything as contrived and dialed in as you would think a band that you would undeniably call a pop punk band would do. Because I feel like you can't call them anything other than pop punk.
Right.
I feel like it just doesn't fit. Like, post-hardcore maybe, but it's way catchier than that.
So looking through all these reviews, no one can agree on who they sound like. So you mentioned Joyce Manor. It's like, they don't sound like Joyce Manor. People say Jeff Rosenstock, and kind of. That's more of an energy.
Yeah, I was going to say, they have maybe the bombastic, like,
But yeah,
over-the-top party.
There's much more structure to
Feeling.
a Pup song, though, than a Rosenstock song. I see one person says the Thermals. Okay. Well, all right, dude.
That's a big stretch.
What else? I saw some other really strange ones that I was just like, what are you talking about? This one says Titus Andronicus? You are... What? Weezer? No. It's too fun to be Weezer. Andrew WK? What? Weaker Thans? Okay.
Because they're Canadian?
Yeah, that's what it says. It's most appropriate to draw a comparison to fellow Canadian natives, the Weaker Thans. What are you talking about?
No. I mean, they sound more like Constantines than the Weaker Thans.
Pup is a party band, not a introspective. Though that's not to say their lyrics aren't really nice. Like, I really enjoy the lyrics on this record. There's some really funny lines. There's this person says they sound like Japan droids, Menzingers, and American football. So it comes down to Pup sound like Pup, and no one knows what else to call them. So
Yeah. They're like a drunk pop punk Fugazi. Yeah. I don't know. Pup is Pup. Pup is going to. We said people are going to know Soul Glow for decades. People are going to know Pup for decades.
yeah, they are an era-defining band, I believe.
They are. I mean, they are actually. They debuted pretty early in the decade. There's a lot about Pup that I think defines punk rock in this decade. And I think they'll probably continue to do that for the next 10 years if they keep at it.
The next record is The Test, though. I feel like it's either this one or the one after the fourth or the fifth record that they do, because I feel like this band is never stopping.
So and here's the thing, they have 3 years between their 3 records. They take their time in making these records, in writing these songs and coming up with these parts. And I think as long as they keep doing that, I think they'll keep putting out good records.
It's the one time they experiment is when it's gonna fall apart, I think. I
don't know. The thing is, I feel like they do experiment.
They do have some interesting textures that you don't hear on every track. There's some stranger, softer moments that then just develop into the full-on, like, crazy party anthems that they are known for. Yeah, I mean, they do stuff different, but I don't know. There's still the Pup formula, and the Pup formula works. You just have to make sure they don't write a Crimson or a Gaslight Anthem's Butt album. So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're the type of band whose trajectory is going to turn into, I don't like that middle stuff that much. if they try and step too far out of their comfort zone, but it's inevitable too. It's hard to write the same record over and over again. So I don't know. It's the most fun record I have on my list this year. So before we, unless you have anything else to say, we'll wrap this part up.
Nope.
Right. So before we do our outro, we're going to play you a little bit of my brief chat with Cory and his favorite records of 2019. Cory has been our earliest supporter of the show, and our most frequently called upon guest, whether or not we've had planned it weeks in advance or we're like, oh shit, somebody bailed, can you fill in for it? He's been there for us, and we appreciate him coming on the show, and so we wanted to get his take on his favorite records of 2019 as well. All right, Cory, what do you have for us today?
All right. I was all in on a very stupid bit where
I forgot about this.
I have in all 5 of my slots the collaborative album between Sting and Shaggy, 44/876. But Sting and Shaggy foiled me. I thought it was a 2019 album. It was a 2018 album. So then I got creative and I wondered about remixes. But they foiled me again. They released the remix album only a month after the initial release.
That is so soon.
So then I got a little more creative, but Sting and Shaggy have beat me at every turn. I wondered about a deluxe or a deluxe album with bonus tracks. Oftentimes, I think you're seeing artists in the late 20 teens releasing deluxe versions of their albums to try and squeeze out a little bit more on the album sales side. But they foiled me again. It was released on December 7th, 2018.
So it'll be in time for Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, now they need a Christmas version of that album, which is just the same album with just like jingle bells over it.
The bonus album only had one unreleased track. It had 2 different versions of the song "Gotta Get Back My Baby," and then 5 unreleased acoustic live tracks. So really squeezing their fans there, Sting and Shaggy.
Yep.
So I couldn't do that bit. So instead, I took my job seriously, and I thought about my 5 favorite albums in no particular order from 2019. And then I've got some notable mentions. I didn't really write anything about my notable mentions, but just a batch of albums that I wanted to spotlight that maybe even just for myself I want to return to a little bit more. That stood out for me in things that were inspiring or interesting in 2019.
Yeah, what do you got first?
So in no particular order, and I wrote this very seriously. I took very serious notes.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really think about the music, but more maybe how I related to the music or how I felt about the music. And for me, one of the biggest albums and most important albums of the year was Martha, Love Keeps Kicking.
I used to stop being ashamed to be myself. I used to start trying, hiding, trying, act like someone else. I used to still want to cry sometimes to catch my own reflection outside. Hearing laughter through the walls, it can't all be that bad. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder. When we first met, it felt like we'd been friends for so much longer. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder. When we first met, it felt like we'd been friends for so much longer.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that one. I mean, well, because I asked you a couple weeks ago. But, I knew that this was probably going to be in your top. Tell us what you like about Martha.
Yeah. So in a just world, I think that Martha would be the biggest and most important band in punk. For me, I'm sure this is similar for listeners and similar for you. I can trace my life in punk back through phases where certain bands were the most important or the most influential bands for me in ways that stretch beyond just like the experience of listening to one single band, but in ways that also maybe they shape general taste, maybe they shape worldview. For me in 2019, Martha is that band for the last probably 4 or 5 years. It continues to blow my mind that they only get better as they keep going. Every release is better than the last. I find them just personally inspiring. And I hope that they never stop being a band.
Yeah, they're kind of a big deal. I think because they're from the UK that maybe people here haven't quite caught on to them. But
yeah, their first album was on Salinas. Their last 2 have been on Nap. So still, kind of smallish labels.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I think probably a little bit more popular UK side, European.
Have they ever played Fest?
They've never played Fest, but I
Yeah.
did see them. They've done a little bit of touring stateside. They did a U.S. tour with Jeff Rosenstock spring of 2018, and then they came over for one-off shows at Ottawa Explosion. I was really, really fortunate to drive up to Ottawa last June, and I got to see them twice in one day. They played an outdoor set in the parking lot of a pub in downtown Ottawa, and then they played a nighttime set at one of the clubs in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, two of the best live experiences that I've had in many years of going to shows.
You know, it's funny. I used to get them confused with a Philadelphia band called Marge.
Yeah, and
that's which is kind of a super group, right?
yeah, they're also on Salinas too, right?
Is that why I was getting them so confused? I mean, Marge and Martha aren't that different in names.
Yeah, I think their last album came out on Salinas. Just like such a great label.
Yeah, I love Salinas. I love what they do.
Yeah,
I kind of an underrated label, I think.
totally. They just quietly do their thing.
Like some record will come out and I won't even know it, and then I'll like check out the discography, and then it's like, what? There was another Radiator Hospital record.
Yeah, I've got their site bookmarked just so I remember to check it out, because otherwise I would just forget about it.
Because they don't have
a lot of publicity. They don't have a lot of distribution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't do. I don't think they even have a Bandcamp, which is how I follow a lot of labels.
Yeah, I think they do now.
Oh, do they now?
Or maybe, you know what? Maybe they just link out to their band's Bandcamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that being. I mean, I get it. They don't want to own. They don't own the music. I guess they're not that kind of label.
Right.
So they don't feel the need to. They don't have their own Bandcamp. But they could do that thing where they have a page, and then when you click on it, it just goes to that band's page. But yeah, it's a good label.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been around for probably 15 years now?
Yeah. I didn't realize. I'm trying to figure out where, if I'm looking at their discography on their website, I see a lot of records that came out this year. I'm trying to figure out where the line started.
Yeah, they put out a bunch this year.
Yeah, like did they do that? Yeah, they did that Radiator Hospital record that I didn't like as much, but yeah, that they have at least 10 to 15 albums that came out this year.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got?
Yeah. So I think we talked about this last year, probably when I was on. You know, last year I felt maybe a little bit more disconnected from punk than I had in previous years, and this year I found myself really going back to it. You know, maybe it was just a really good year for punk. I want to say that to preface that the rest of my list might not necessarily reflect this. Maybe more of the notable mentions. But, you know, I think this was a really good year for punk. I don't know how you're feeling about that. I guess
well, you know, last year, you're right. Last year did feel like a really kind of like an off year for punk. Like there wasn't a ton that I was like really feeling. But this year, I guess also punk's definition is broadened quite a bit within the last couple of years. Because it seems like a lot of what gets labeled just like DIY is essentially punk at its core, but it almost has more of like an indie rock sound to it. And I think that's just an extension of what was happening in the early part of this decade, and it's just kind of evolved. I don't know. I don't think there's like a strict definition of what punk is in 2019, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so next up on my list is Carly Rae Jepsen's Dedicated.
Woke up this morning, it feels like every day I got the blues, babe, not going away. Another bad dream where you were running away. I'm forever haunted by your time. We had a moment, we had a summertime. I spent a day with you, but I could never decide. I've been so torn up, I've been so out of it. I'm forever haunted by our time. I've been all alone on my own. Every single night I pray when you're coming home, coming home. 'Cause I've been living for that day. Juliet, in your
You love Carly Rae Jepsen.
I love Carly Rae Jepsen. I'm so disappointed that I didn't get to see her. I was waiting on tickets, and they never dropped below a price I was willing to pay until the day of, and by that time it was just too late. I don't know. I don't necessarily know how to describe why I found myself so connected to this album. I definitely listened to it more than anything else this year, and just at a loss for words for how to describe it. So I'm gonna turn to someone who has written more, both in volume and also just in clarity, than I ever will be able to talk about Carly Rae's music. Hanif Abdurraqib has written a lot about her. And so I'm quoting him when I read this out. He says, when people talk about Carly Rae Jepsen's music as if it just arrives as is, or when it gets discussed as something about or meant solely for youth, it does a real disservice to the work that must go into being able to make people feel everything all at once. I love that description. I mean, the album for me is just this really powerful example of like just tension, release, and big feelings, and being okay with big feelings.
You know, she is an interesting figure in pop music because Call Me Maybe was like a massive hit, and nothing she released after that kind of even came close to that. And I don't know.
And that was a real cross-generational hit too. You know, that was something that children. I was working in an elementary school at the time, and you know, if you work in education, every year there's a different song that's, you know, the song of the year, and that year Call Me Maybe was that song. In a way that her later work hasn't.
I feel like while she is very much a pop musician, I feel like her audience tends to be the type of people who listen to more indie music or, you know, more alt styles of music.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you can probably trace it in some way to something like Pitchfork's influence, putting her on the bill at the last couple. I don't know if it's been every year, but at least a few in the last couple of years of their music festival every year. Yeah. There's maybe a legitimacy that critical praise offers, and people can kind of let their guard down a little bit as to what they'll let in. I don't really like the word poptimist. I think it's overused, and I think it's troubling in some ways. But I don't think you can really deny that the effect of places like Pitchfork and places like Stereogum. Mm-hmm. You know, they offer a legitimization of maybe something that people would otherwise feel uncomfortable voicing.
Yeah, it's like, funny.
It's been okay. It's not controversial to say I like punk and I also like Carly Rae Jepsen.
Yeah,
I'm not unique in that.
There's like a handful of pop artists that it's okay to say that. Like, who else gets that? Like, Taylor Swift gets that weird pass, strangely, as big as she is. Who else? Like Robin, I feel like, is another one that everyone is like, I can like punk and Robin, but nobody really is like, and Katy Perry. It's like, no, nobody cares about Katy Perry the way they care about Carly Rae Jepsen. Yeah. People, and even like Kesha wound up getting embraced, maybe because of her story, but yeah, because I guess her, like, the big hits off like that first record, I don't know. I feel like those did get a little trashed by the punk community, but I think everybody figured out what her deal was. And
yeah, I mean, maybe retroactively, there's just a little bit more of a willingness to just accept that it doesn't have to be serious all the time. It's right. Like, it's okay to like a stupid song like TikTok.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I love that song. It's terrible, but I love that song.
Yeah. All right, number 3.
Cool.
Fresh, Withdraw. Missing Fresh at Fest is just added to the list of tremendous Fest regrets.
Yeah.
I opted for Jawbreaker instead. As Lauren likes to point out, we could have seen Fresh in their half-hour set and still caught almost all of Jawbreaker.
Yeah. I almost think you should have.
Oh yeah. The first half hour or so of Jawbreaker's set was fine. It was great. I'm glad that I got to see Jawbreaker, but I don't remember the songs they played.
No, it was a strange set. It was
a strange set.
Had a lot of deeper cuts than you'd anticipate. And like the back half had some of the bigger songs, but
yeah, I could have gone and watched Fresh and still made it for Kiss the Bottle and Boxcar and House. Yeah. Anyway, Fresh, Withdraw. When I think about Fresh and try and think about why this album hits so hard, I think about the importance of specificity in being able to draw like an intimate connection to music. When Catherine, their singer, sings about missing friends in Brighton or being 50 miles out of Leeds, there's this level of relational connection. You know, you can imagine yourself missing a place or a person in a place in a way that was really affecting for me. I love this record. I've been listening to it ever since I came across it. Won't stop listening to it anytime soon.
Yeah, I did we come to it independently? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember.
Because I know you sent it to me, and I remember saying, oh yeah, I've listened to this record, but I don't remember if you even recommended it before that. I don't know.
I don't remember either.
They, this record is definitely, I have a list of 100 records that I listened to or that I liked from this year.
Yeah.
I listened to over 200 records this year.
Cool.
And this record makes my list pretty high. I want to say maybe in the 20s or 30s. Yeah, this record was really great. I love the hell out of it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they do next.
Yeah. I think
hopefully it involves more North American tour dates. I'm hoping that it involves a North American distribution too for their records. They put out their stuff on Specialist Subject, which unfortunately doesn't have a great presence in U.S. or North American distros. I really don't want to give my money to Amazon, so I'm avoiding ordering a physical copy. But come on,
that's an interesting label. I like. Maybe not like every band they've put out, but they do have stuff that I really enjoy. Like they've done some Caves records and
yeah. They just put out another good album this year, the Wonows. I think it's Minty from Caves, his new band.
Okay.
Yeah, worth checking out.
Yeah.
More of that shouty anthemy punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that revival to come back. Hasn't been gone very long, but.
All right, number 4.
Okay.
Is Earthgang, Mirrorland.
Exclusive.
Just another day in these filthy, sweet Atlanta streets. Back on the greenback hunt. 1 for the money and 2 for the loot. You want to run with bulls, best tie your shoes. I make all your dreams and nightmares come true. I've got all that I want, now I've got you. Now get back on your feet like giraffe, elephant, kangaroo. Can't come through these promises unless you cool, unless you know the who's who.
Hip-hop rap duo from Atlanta. This is the most, like, if I were writing the review for, I'm just looking at my notes here. If I were writing the Pitchfork review of Earthgang Mirrorland, this would be like the last sentence. I'm going to avoid the really lazy comparisons that are often thrown around when people talk about Earthgang, and instead focus on the world-making power that Earthgang holds. For just under an hour, it's Earthgang's world.
And for those unfamiliar, the most obvious comparison I heard, and I don't know, it probably is what everyone else is saying, was definitely Outkast.
Yeah, definitely. You've got the easy comparison, both being from Atlanta. Mm-hmm. You've got both groups borrowing heavily from, really, really diverse cross sections of black music. Mm-hmm. Not only soul, jazz, funk, but beyond that. But I don't find I find the comparison a little bit lazy.
Well, all right then. That's it for Cory. This is one, like, you sent me your list of albums that you listened to this year, and I sampled a little bit of everything. This is the one I didn't get as deep into as I probably should have, but what I heard I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. Like many hip hop artists, they have had a pre-order for the vinyl version of the album since I think August or September that they have yet to they have yet to fulfill on the delivery of those records.
Why does that happen
I don't
so
know.
often?
I don't know. I wonder if it has to do with just the immediacy that especially artists in hip hop have with releasing their music. Yeah, I mean, you finish an album, you put it out the next day. We can see that with Kanye finishing an album and it's out by midnight, or sometimes not by midnight when it's supposed to be. But you don't have that long delay between finishing an album and putting it out into the world.
Yeah, it doesn't follow the typical like album cycle as far as, well, now we have to put out our single and then build interest, and then it's just like, yep, here it is.
Yep.
I guess that comes from the mixtape aspect of hip hop.
I think that's dead on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Earthgang, if you're interested in more, have a ton of great mixtapes. They've got a ton of great collaborations. They're affiliated with the Dreamville universe, including North Carolina's own J. Cole. Yeah, lots of really cool stuff that they are involved with. Last on my list is Big Thief, Two Hands.
It's not the energy reeling, nor the lines in your face, nor the clouds on the ceiling, nor the clouds in space. It's not the phone on the table, nor the bed in the earth, nor the bed in the stable, nor your stable words. It's not the formless being, nor the cry in the air, nor the boy I'm seeing with her long black hair. It's not the open weaving, nor the furnace glow, nor the blood of you bleeding as you try to let go. It's not the room, not beginning, not the crowd, not winning, not the plan.
Big Thief put out 2 albums this year. And
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, Two Hands came out in, I think, September or October, during a wonderful overall, but a particularly stressful spring trip to Chicago. The only thing that I really wanted to listen to was Big Thief. And, and Lauren does not like Big Thief. It made the in-car DJ process a little bit back and forth, but all I wanted to listen to was Big Thief. I'm not really saying anything that other people haven't said before. It's nothing new, but I do think that it's a testament to the level at which this band is in sync with one another. If you see videos or read interviews with them, they're constantly talking about how familial they are in the band, how close they are to one another. And so just the level at which they are in sync with one another, that in 2019, uniquely so, I think one band can have 2 of the best albums of the year. That's something you don't see a lot.
I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of the music press was focused on the first one that came out this year, UFOF.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a chance to listen to that one, so I thought it was interesting that you chose the second one that less people were talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to discount UFOF at all. Just for me, Two Hands is the stronger of the 2, but I love them both. Like 2 of the best albums of the year from the same band. That doesn't really happen anymore.
Yeah, it's rare. I wonder too if the first one used up a lot of the oxygen for them, just because it came out first. Because yeah, you're right. It's not typical to release 2 full-length albums in 1 year, and for them to get the same attention evenly, especially from like bigger press outlets too.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are my 5.
Awesome.
5. I've got some notable mentions that I think are worth spending more time with, both me and listeners. The self-titled Vagabond album is great. I need to spend more time with it to get a better feel for it. I can't remember when it came out, last half of the year though. I loved Infinite Worlds. Infinite Worlds was not the only, but a significant part of the soundtrack to my first year in my PhD program. Really long, long days, long drives back and forth between my home and where my school is. And I would often throw this on, especially on the late night drives. And so to hear now her come back 2 years later and with something a little bit more fully realized in terms of like an artistic statement, Vagabond self-titled, really worth listening to. And Vivian Girls were back. I think I talked about this a little bit on one of the other episodes I was on with you this year.
Yeah, I think it was when they had like announced that they were coming back or something like that.
Yeah, I was really excited for them to come back, and their comeback album Memory was great. I've continued listening to it.
Yeah, I listened to that one as well, and I enjoyed it myself. I don't really have a history with that band because there's so many bands with a similar name that I think I got them confused with a lot of other acts. But I did listen to this record, and I thought it was really good too.
Sure. What else do I have here? Oh, you mentioned this earlier. Radiator Hospital sings Music for Daydreaming. Not as maybe an immediate connection as I've made, and I think as you've made with their earlier albums, but I spent a little bit of time with it. I did like it, just not enough to slot it into those top 5.
Yeah, I was disappointed by it. I very much enjoyed the previous 3 full lengths that they put out, and I think my main issue with it is that it's not really a bad record, but it's mainly just an acoustic record.
Yeah, it's a little slower.
And acoustic Radiator Hospital is my least favorite Radiator Hospital, but it's still a solid record.
Definitely. Next, I've got Bon Iver's I.
What's the deal with this?
What do you want to know?
Well, it's an electronic record, right?
No, not really.
Okay.
Definitely some parts. I would say that his last album was far more electronic, though.
Well,
I've read other writers talk about how this album is a really nice coming together of the many different shades of Bon Iver. You've got the acoustic side, you've got the more glitchy experimental side, you've got the kind of, I don't know, schlocky Bruce Coburn, Bruce Hornsby inspired 80s throwback, and you've got it all mixed together in maybe a more compelling way than in some of his earlier releases. I don't think that he's put anything out that I don't like. Sorry, I say he, but I mean they. The band is a collective. It's not just Justin Vernon.
Yeah, I think they created an identity, I guess, around that very first record. And yes, it was like a full lineup, but it was his Justin Vernon's like songwriting that kind of.
Yeah, you can't escape that mythology of that first record because, in fairness to the rest of the players in the band, it hasn't been just him since that first record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it. Just need to spend a little bit more time with it, I think. I got a few more. Sorry to take all your time.
No, you're fine.
Sacred Paws, Run Around the Sun. Merge put this out. Just really cool UK or Scotland, I think. Sorry for blanking on the details there. Sacred Paws.
Actually, Anne also recommended this album as well. So
yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
Just like really fun, bouncy post-punk, like Raincoats, Slits inspired. Yeah, just great stuff. And this was, I think, their second LP. Run Around the Sun was better than the first for me. Worth listening to. Yeah. 2 more. These are really, if I had come to these earlier in the year, I don't know, these might have moved up into the main list. But Win, If I May mixtape, only found out about her and her work because she is touring with Earthgang, and I'm hoping to go and see that tour in Toronto when they swing through in February. She's great. I don't really know what else to say.
If you're
Win, WYNNE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you are like me, both a hip hop, rap, and basketball fan, and you don't yet know that Damian Lillard is also a rapper and goes by the name Dame Dollar, you will be pleasantly surprised to hear the thesis off of this mixtape where Dame Dollar has a very good verse.
None of that means anything to me, but hopefully our listeners know what you're talking about.
All right, and last one. This was released, I think, only 2 weeks ago. So I'm only 2 weeks in. It's not left my ears. I'm listening to it in the car. I'm listening to it while I work. I'm listening to it constantly. When this first came out, I told you that I listened to it, I think, 10 times in a row. And you said that you you don't ever listen to music like that.
No.
So my last notable mention is Georgia Mack, Pleaser. Georgia Mack is also the singer of Camp Cope, whose last album, How to Win Friends and Influence People, How to Win Friends and Socialize, can't remember exact title, came out last year on Run for Cover and Poison City out of Australia. Just 2 weeks ago, dropped a surprise solo album that, if you are similarly a fan of people like Carly Rae Jepsen or Robin, I think that you will likely enjoy this. I am all for plaintive, pleading heartbreak songs, and that's what you're getting in this album. Just, really loving it. Hope she does more in the future.
You know, you told me about this record, and then I know what Camp Cope sounds like, and I went and listened to a little bit of it, and I was surprised to hear it was so poppy.
Yeah, so I read a couple interviews with her, and her kind of two touchstones for this record were she said she wanted to make an album that sounded like a mix of Paul Westerberg and Robin. I don't like the Replacements enough to make that assessment, if that's an apt comparison. But yeah, the Robin, that one stands out for me.
All right. Well, is that it?
Yeah, that's all I've got.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Cory.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, that was Cory. So, seamless transition again. I am nailing this. That'll do it for part 1. Join us next week for part 2. Until then, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at punklautopod. We have an email address, is punklautopod@gmail.com, and our website is punklautopod.simplecast.fm. We have a voicemail line, so give us a call. It's 202-688-PUNK. That is 202-688-7865. So give us a call, yell at us, tell us your favorite record of 2019. If you get it in under the wire, I might play you on the show. So that'll do it for this week.